Welcome back to On the Radar, the show where we take a look at all the games that are on my personal watch list for the month and why. The holiday season is here already, ladies and gentlemen, and it is time to look at the game releases for December 2025. December is usually one of the quietest months of the entire year as far as video game releases go, and most years I'd be lucky if I even had one or two games of note I'm paying attention to. But this year, we somehow have more cool games coming out than we did in November. Kicking it off with the earliest possible date on our list, on December 1st, we have the release of Marvel Cosmic Invasion, coming to PC, PS4 and 5, Switch 1 and 2, and Xbox Series consoles. Back in the 90s, it was all too common for superhero games to either be 2D beat-em-ups or fighting games, and in classic fashion, Marvel Cosmic Invasion is throwing back to those roots with a very Mega Drive or SNES-inspired 2D beat-em-up. I actually really like this genre, even though it's largely become a relic of the past, so when this game first got announced, I was super excited. It's colourful, it looks great visually, the gameplay looks tight, and the roster is looking damn solid. They have me as a day one purchase thanks to the inclusion of Beta Ray Bill alone. Bit of a shame there's no Daredevil, but I guess you can't win them all. Plus, he doesn't really do cosmic level stuff. There is a demo of this available to download and play if you want to try out if it's your thing first before buying, but I already know it is, so I'm just waiting for the big day. Next on our list is a little possible hidden gem called Sleep Awake, coming to PC, PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series consoles on December 2nd. This is one of those story-based immersion narrative experiences, and those don't normally get more than a passing glance from me, but there's a couple of things here that grabbed my attention. The first is that it actually looks like a very eerie horror story, and I think the atmosphere in the trailer is awesome. The second is that it's published by Blumhouse Games, and if their game department is anything like their movie department, then eventually these guys will release an absolute banger, and who knows, maybe this is it. The third thing is that it's being made by Corey Davis, director of Spec Ops: The Line, and Robin Fink, the guitarist of Nine Inch Nails. Let's hope it doesn't release at too high a price, because a game from these guys at a modest price sounds like a really great weekend to me. Moving on to December 4th, we actually have an incredibly stacked day, so let's go from smallest title to biggest title. First off, we have another immersive horror experience with the game Routine. Apparently this game has been in development for over a decade. I don't remember ever seeing it before until its recent trailers earlier this year, but hey, for you routiners who have been counting down the days, I guess it's finally here. Launching on PC, Xbox One and Xbox Series consoles, Routine is the debut game of developers Luna Software, which is why it's so surprising to hear that the soundtrack was composed by none other than Mick Gordon. I'll admit, that's like the one reason why this caught my attention, but hey, the game does look beautiful and is supposed to be an actual survival horror game, so it might actually be really good. The next game on this day is Octopath Traveler 0, coming to PC, PS4 and 5, Switch 1 and 2, and Xbox Series consoles. Here we have ourselves a prequel to the original Octopath Traveler, a game and series which needs almost no introduction now. If you somehow are unfamiliar, however, Octopath Traveler is a very classic style JRPG series made by Square Enix, which is meant to be a modern spin on the SNES era of JRPGs like Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest. Featuring a breathtaking HD 2D art style, combining high detail sprite work and modern lighting techniques, this series has really grown over the years, and I feel like Zero will be the make or break point for the franchise. The first game was well liked but not quite beloved, but the second game supposedly took everything that made the first game great and only improved on it. If Octopath Traveler 0 here manages to do the same and successfully expand on the lore of the series, then we will truly have ourselves something special here. I myself have only played a few hours of the first game, a problem which I really need to rectify, but I just have not been in the right place at the right time to do so. The final game coming out on this fateful day is probably the biggest remaining game release of the entire rest of the year, and that is Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, coming to both Nintendo Switch 1 and 2. I have to admit, Metroid is my number one favourite Nintendo-made series, and I've played almost every single one of the mainline games, but when it comes to the Prime series, I am sorely lacking, having only played Metroid Prime Hunters back on the Nintendo DS. The Prime series was originally an FPS spin-off series by Retro Studios, but has over time come to be pretty much on the same tier, if not regarded higher, than the more traditional 2D series. I was one of the few that lost my complete mind the day that Metroid Prime 4 was originally revealed for the Nintendo Switch nearly a decade ago now, and you'd think I'd be so excited that it's finally coming out, but the truth is that I'm a bit afraid that we've been monkey-pawed here. You see, the gameplay looks beautifully fluid, the art gorgeous, graphics fantastic, mouse control options for Switch 2 look promising, but there's something about what this game is that gives me the heebie-jeebies. A decent amount of the game seems to be connected by a big open world wasteland you can explore on your bike, and say it with me kids, open world is a crutch for padding and poor game design. I really hope this doesn't end up being the case, but I can count the amount of games that benefited from having an open world on a single hand. There's also this little cast of human characters that'll periodically join you on your mission, and look, this might end up being fine, but I still remember the last time a Metroid game tried to have a cast of characters, and I think we can all agree we don't talk about Other M. I just hope this lives up to the hype it's built. Finally moving on to another date, on December 8th we have Skate Story coming to PC, PlayStation 5 and Nintendo Switch 2. I used to be a huge fan of skating games. I could not tell you how many hours I put into Skate 3 back in the day, but nothing ever since has hit for me, especially not that new Skate. This game looks like it's exactly what I need, something totally new and unique. Published by Devolver Digital, Skate Story looks to be one of those indie experience style games, where you have one special playthrough that ideally strikes a chord deep in you. This looks exactly up my alley. You've got yourself some weird artsy design to the game, a banging atmospheric soundtrack, solid looking gameplay, a depressive type character, and a story about demons and devils in the moon and stuff. I don't know, this game looks very esoteric, but I am so here for that. It even has some odd cinematic camera style to it to give it a really specific feel, and I just really want to play it. Let's hope the skating part is just as good as the art design is. The final game on our list for December actually isn't a game at all, but our first DLC on an OTR video. On December 10th, we have the release of Pokemon Legends ZA Mega Dimensions. I actually did a full review of this game earlier this month, so if you haven't seen that, go check it out. But like I said there, I'm actually pretty keen for this DLC. We have ourselves a bit of a spin-off story involving Hooper and the gang from the main game will have to get back together again to take on whatever is going on with the dimensions. We have what looks like a ton of returning Pokemon, and the picks seem to be great so far. Some new Mega Evolutions such as Chimecho and Baxcalibur, enemy Pokemon going above level 100, and some more returning characters from Pokemon X and Y. A lot of people were pretty mad that this got announced before the base game actually launched, but to be honest, I'm fine with it. It looks like probably the most interesting Pokemon DLC so far, and I'm keen to have more of that game to play since I personally ran out of things to do in it. I'm hoping for some cool new music too. Some new tracks would be very welcome. That's not even all for the list of things for December. The last entry we have isn't actually a game or a DLC, or something you would play at all. On December 11th, the Game Awards will be streamed live on Twitch and YouTube, and it is by far my favourite gaming event of the year now that E3 is officially 6 feet under. Jeff Keighley is back once again to host his patented mix of game reveals and yearly awards to give out. The Game Awards is usually just 80% boring reveals, rushed presentations, and people giving speeches that are way too long, but sometimes you actually do get some banger announcements, and seeing the devs that make the games you love can actually make you feel much more connected to it. I'll definitely be watching, and I'm debating on whether or not I'll make a recap video on the show to talk about the reveals and awards. Look, we all know that Claire Obscure Expedition 33 is going to be taking home nearly every single award that it is nominated for, but we all know that it couldn't be more deserved. That's going to be it for all the things that are on the radar for December 2025. It ended up being a much chunkier list than almost any December ever has been, but I'm glad that it is. I'll be putting out some more game reviews before the end of the year is done, but if you watch me mainly for these OTR videos, then I just wanted to take a minute to say thank you, and I hope you have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. See you later, guys.